The beginning of the film is an image of a girl chasing a cat that took her hairpin, but by mistake, she fell down the road below, and when she saw that, Willem was immediately rushed to help her. This blue-haired girl was a spirit named Catholi, and upon seeing a hairless creature appear, the surrounding beastmen chased her away, so Willem took his hat to put it on for Catholi and lead her out of there. Soon after, Willem took Catholi to buy a new hat, and knowing that Miss Catholi was going somewhere, Willem showed her the way. Since Catholi first came to this place, Willem took her to the central tower so that she could see the entire island from above, and this island and the others were all floating, hovering in the sky. While the two were talking, a group of soldiers suddenly appeared, and after thanking Willem, Catholi quickly followed the group of soldiers. That night, Willem's goblin friend told him that his superiors had just given Willem a new mission, and that mission was to guard an army arsenal. Willem boarded a ship to go to a flying island with the number 68, and this place was originally a military arsenal, so there were no people living there. Willem had crossed a small forest to go to his new place of work, but a child with a wooden stick suddenly came out of nowhere to attack him, and that child pushed him straight into the swamp below. After hearing the noise, Catholi rushed out to check, and the girl thought Willem was an intruder, so it attacked him. But Catholi was surprised to see Willem here again. Willem has been taken to his new place to be washed and cleaned, and Willem also meets a demon friend of his named Niglatho who works there. Willem asked Niglatho about his main job at the armory, but before he could answer, Niglatho discovered that 4 idiots were eavesdropping on them, so she sent them back to their room. Sleep immediately. Willem had just returned to his room when the 4 girls from earlier came to bother him again, and they felt extremely curious because this was the first time a man had come to this island. But Catholi went to Willem's room to send the kids back to their room to sleep. Catholi was a little embarrassed to see Willem again, and Willem wondered why Catholi and the children lived on this armory. But Catholi reveals that she and the children are the weapons Willem will have to manage. The next day, Willem still couldn't imagine these innocent girls being the weapons of the army. And Niglatho had introduced to the girls that Willem was their new manager, but they seemed rather shy at the appearance of a stranger like Willem. While drying clothes on the terrace, Willem met 2 girls about the same age as Catholi. And the girl with blonde hair like cat ears is called Athea, and the quiet girl with white hair is called Ren. Willem suddenly had an idea to make pudding for the kids. And after enjoying the pudding made by Willem, the children became closer to him. The next morning, Willem was happily watching the children play ball when a little girl accidentally fell into the cliff, so he jumped in panic to save her. But for some reason, the girl still showed no pain even though her body was severely injured. As it turned out, the spirit girls on the island had been adapted to feel no fear, and Niglatho led Willem down into a cellar to let him know the secret of the place. According to Niglatho, 500 years ago, a group of monsters suddenly appeared and destroyed the entire earth. And after humans were exterminated, other creatures fled to the heavenly islands to live. Although they were destroyed, the holy swords of the human warriors were kept and they were powerful weapons of destruction that only humans could use. That's why the armies of the races created little spirit girls to use them, because spirits are the ones whose origins are closest to humans. Willem did not see Catholi and Athea in the days that followed, and they returned to the island in an army airship in tatters, for Willem guessed that they had just gone down ground to fight monsters. Catholi had passed out from exhaustion, so Willem had to take care of her until she regained consciousness. And Catholi was embarrassed when she saw Willem beside her. However, Catholi suddenly says that she will probably die in the next battle because her party will be sent to fight a powerful monster that is about to attack Island 35. And she wants to receive it. Get a kiss from Willem so you don't have to die single. However, Willem's disapproval made her very angry, so Willem had to give Catholi a kiss on the forehead to fulfill her wish. The next morning, Catholi felt extremely ashamed for having said some silly things to Willem. And Willem and Ren had to clean up a bunch of stuff in the warehouse all night. But when they saw them, Catholi showed a very jealous expression. Willem called Catholi out into the yard to test her sword skills, and in the ensuing battle Catholi was unable to touch Willem's body. So Willem has concluded that Catholi's basic fighting skills are quite poor, even though she possesses a very powerful source of energy. However, when the match ended, Willem suddenly fell unconscious, and Niglatho took Willem to his room to take care of him until he regained consciousness. Niglatho had told the children that Willem was also a human hero more than 500 years ago, but Willem was petrified by a god of this world named Aben Candle, until Niglatho's expedition find him after 500 years. The children couldn't help but be surprised when they learned that Willem was humanity's last hero. And after hearing that, Catholi also felt a little confused, so she flew to an airship to meet her commander to comfort her. The commander gave some advice that made Catholi feel more relieved, and had just returned to the island when Catholi found Willem cleaning her holy sword. The energy emanating from the holy sword created a very beautiful scene. And Catholi suddenly told Willem that she would definitely come back alive from the upcoming battle, so she wanted Willem to make her a cake at that time. The next day, Catholi, Athea and Ren set out to fight the monsters on Island 35. Meanwhile, Willem will have to take a little girl named Tiot to Flying Island 11 to investigate. Willem and Tiot were surprised by the bustle of Flying Island 11, so Willem took her for a walk around the island to visit first, and then took her to the hospital for a checkup. Strong. As a senior officer in the army, Willem was prepared for a very luxurious room. And he asked about the situation of the war that Catholi and the others were participating in, but it seems the information about the war is completely confidential. While walking around the barracks, Willem suddenly saw the soldiers in a commotion, and after asking, Willem learned that Catholi's group had lost the battle. The news sent Willem into despair, as he couldn't believe he would never see Catholi again. However, Catholi and her group still returned safely despite losing the battle, and as soon as they saw Catholi, Willem rushed to hug her tightly. But Catholi thought Willem was up to something, so she slapped Willem. It turned out that a new type of monster had appeared on Island 35, and because he did not know how to deal with it, the commander ordered a retreat. During the meeting, Ren kept sitting on Willem's body for some reason, so Catholi got jealous when he saw that. A girl named Fyra suddenly burst into the meeting room to meet the commander, and she is the daughter of the mayor in power in this city. But she said that a group of rebels was trying to assassinate her father and son, so she wanted to ask the commander to help her destroy them. The commander was busy dealing with a new monster, so he asked Willem to help Fyra, and together everyone went to the hospital to pick up Tiot from there after finishing the examination. Everyone suddenly saw a restaurant selling lamb, so they decided to come and eat. But Fyra stopped them and said that the food was not good and expensive, so she led everyone to another decent-looking lamb restaurant to eat. After eating, Fyra took everyone around the city to visit, but the rebels suddenly surrounded everyone and demanded to take Fyra with them. The rebels quickly rushed to attack everyone, but somehow Willem just pointed his finger and they all rolled to the ground. As it turned out, Willem soon discovered that the rebels were following them from the diner, so he purposely sent everyone to a secluded place to make them visible. Soon after, the entire rebel army was captured by the city's security forces, and Fyra slapped Willem for daring to use her as bait, but she thanked everyone for their help. Help her deal with those rebels. Catholi had realized earlier that Willem was only pretending to shoot a gun, but he was actually knocking out the enemy by flipping coins with his other hand, and Catholi had concluded that Willem could now as the strongest man in the world. Just as he was leaving the spaceship to return home, a soldier suddenly asked Willem to come with him, so Willem let the girls return home first. As it turned out, the one who called Willem was his old teammate named Suawang, and Suawang was overjoyed after seeing Willem again after more than 500 years. Willem wondered how Suawang was still alive until now, and Suawang revealed that he used a curse to turn himself into an undead zombie. 500 years ago, Suawang was still a young boy in Willem's hero party, and the other member of the group was a red-haired girl named Lilia. Suawang asked Willem to meet someone who also knew him, and that person was a supreme god who petrified Willem named Aben Candle, but he only had a skull left to talk to now. After the final battle with Willem, Aben Candle's body was also disintegrated, and it was Suawang who invited him to cooperate to create the flying islands like today. Suawang told Willem that the 17 monsters were created from failed human experiments. However, Willem was furious when he learned that it was Suawang who created the spirits, and that the spirits were created from the wandering souls of young girls who died young. But anyway, the spirits were the only way to defeat the monsters. According to Suawang, there were a few cases where spirits would be invaded by their past life memories if they used too much magic power. And then the spirits would lose all memories of this life and return to the humans of the previous life. Coincidentally, Catholi was now also invaded by memories of her previous life, so Willem had to hurry back home after hearing the news. In her dream, Catholi saw herself standing in a strange space, and she met a red-haired girl named Iruku. Willem and Niglatho spent the whole night looking after Miss Catholi, and when he saw her awake, Willem was overjoyed and hugged her. After being invaded by the spirit of her previous life, Catholi's hair turned a little red. And according to Niglatho, Catholi's body was no longer a spirit. Catholi doesn't know what she would do now if she didn't fight. but Niglatho encouraged Catholi to flirt with Willem and marry him. And if Catholi doesn't dare, Niglatho will flirt with him. Willem made some cakes for the kids to eat together, but Catholi didn't see him go out, so he had to take him inside for Catholi's room. Turns out, Catholi didn't want to eat cake in front of everyone, so she hid in her room. And she also worries that people will laugh at her red hair, but Willem encourages her that her red hair looks very beautiful. In the days that followed, Catholi grew closer and closer to Willem, and Catholi also learned to cook to flirt with him. Willem, Niglatho and the commander had a small meeting to discuss Catholi's condition. And during the meeting, Willem learned that there was a group of explorers on a mission on the ground, and 2 other spirits were also following to protect that ship. Meanwhile, the ship and the soldiers on the ground were being attacked by a monster, and the ship was severely damaged by one of its attacks. But a young spirit girl named Noct destroyed it with a single blow. The expedition party was stuck on the ground because their ship was completely damaged, so they had to wait for the military to send reinforcements. Willem's commander is a short guy but likes to torture his subordinates, and to talk to him, Willem has to be extremely polite. Willem learned that the military would send a force to the ground to save the ship in distress. And after reading through the file, Willem saw that the group below ground had found a sword capable of curing Catholi's disease, so he offered to go with the rescue team down there. Soon after, Willem took Miss Catholi for a walk around the city and talked to each other. And Catholi also demanded to follow Willem to the ground. But Willem vehemently objected because she was no longer able to fight. Unable to convince Willem, Miss Catholi went directly to the commander to ask for permission. And thinking Miss Catholi was Willem's lover, the commander agreed to let her go. Ren had fallen asleep on Willem after a night of studying swords on the ground together, and Miss Catholi scolded Willem for being too lenient with girls other than herself. Niglatho was sure that Catholi was worried about Willem being robbed by other girls. And Niglatho said she also thought about marrying Willem even though they were not of the same race. But she doesn't want to have to fight for love with Catholi. That night, the children were in a panic because there were many shooting stars in the sky, and Willem and Catholi went out together in the yard to look at them. However, a spoiled brat accidentally fell to the ground while watching a meteor, so Catholi had to use magic to summon spirit wings to save her. But after using magic power, Catholi began to be invaded by the spirit of her previous life, and her hair had started to turn more red. Catholi had gone out to sit alone for fear that she would forget everyone after being invaded. And seeing that, Athea also went out here to confide in her. As it turned out, Athea had also been invaded by past life memories. But before being completely invaded, Athea was regularly rewriting the diary, so the previous life self decided to continue living the life of the real Athea. However, Catholi doesn't care which being is living in Athea's body, because Catholi thinks that she is now the friend Athea has been fighting with for so long. And after hearing that, Athea felt herself very happy. Instead of keeping a diary like Athea, Catholi decided to live happily in the last moments of her life. Because after she is completely invaded, she will return to the person of her previous life and not Catholi anymore. And Catholi realized that she was gradually forgetting the memories with everyone around her. Niglatho's demons have a custom of having a party on a snowy day, but in fact, that practice is similar to human Christmas. And on that occasion, Catholi knitted the children in the house some towels to keep warm. The next day, Willem, Catholi and Ren will set off to the ground to rescue the stranded ship, and Catholi has now forgotten more than half of her memories with everyone around her. Everyone was able to get down to the ground to help the stranded ship, and when it became known that Willem was the last human, the spirit girl named Ron felt extremely uncomfortable. Because after all, humans are the ones who created the monsters that caused the whole world to be destroyed. However, apart from the monsters being biological weapons, their origin remains a mystery. Just knowing that the entire terrestrial world was completely destroyed after their appearance, and it was even more confusing that the more humans disappeared, the more the monsters increased in number. Willem and Ren went to the ruins of the human city to meet the commander, and Willem recalled that this place more than 500 years ago was once a very rich city. Willem was surprised to see his goblin friend here again, but it seemed his friend was having a heated argument with the short commander. Meanwhile, Catholi was helping everyone clean up the ship, and the young men on board quickly fell for her bravery. While cleaning up, Catholi suddenly collapsed and saw an image of an old teammate of Willem named Lilia. And it seems that she has fought with Uruku before. After regaining consciousness, Catholi cooked all the soldiers a very hearty meal. And the soldiers feel extremely jealous that Willem has a cute girlfriend like Catholi. But they will beat Willem if they dare to treat her badly. Willem tried to open all of the crew's chests to find a sword capable of healing Catholi, and he asked Noft and Ron to give their swords to him for maintenance. However, Willem suddenly discovered that Noft's sword was only used to cut each other, so he was shocked to realize that the 17 types of monsters that wreak havoc around the world were transformed by humans. Willem feels extremely remorseful for the sins humanity has caused in this world, and while confused, Willem proposes to Catholi. Because he wanted to make up for the suffering Catholi went through while fighting the monsters. The next day, Catholi is still feeling very happy after receiving Willem's confession. And the two of them were quite shy when going together. They were walking inside the ruins when they suddenly saw a picture of the three gods who had worked under Uruku. And Willem recognized one of the gods as the Skullman Aben Candle, for he had fought him until he was frozen to stone. Right after that, a large earthquake suddenly occurred throughout the entire ruins area. And a swarm of monsters appeared to surround everyone, so the female spirits present on the ship had to hurry to defeat them. Willem and Catholi fell into an underground tunnel, and Catholi suddenly heard Eriku's voice calling her, so she followed the voice. After going to an ancient temple, Catholi's hair turned completely red, and everyone was surprised to see the body of a little girl frozen here. But they didn't know that the girl was the god that once ruled the world of Uruku. The earthquake got stronger and stronger, so Willem quickly took Catholi away from there. And just after returning to the ship, Catholi met Uruku in her dreams again. Uruku tells Catholi that humans once intended to destroy this world, so the gods led their armies to destroy the entire human race. But the gods were defeated by heroes from the human side, and after the gods were defeated, the humans turned into monsters and destroyed the world. Uruku was also one of the gods that ruled the world before, and the one who defeated her was Willem's female teammate Lilia. But after dying, Uruku was reincarnated as Catholi. Meanwhile, Ron and Noft were still fighting the monsters outside, and Ren was fighting some of the monsters that got inside the ship. But it seems she has also begun to be invaded by the memories of her previous life because of using too much magic power. Willem is still anxiously taking care of his fiancée, and Catholi's soul and body are about to be completely replaced by Uruku. The flying boat quickly took off to escape the siege of the monsters, but it seemed that a large number of monsters had followed the ship, so Willem had to go out to support everyone against the monsters. Outside the airship now, Ron was completely defeated by a monster, and fortunately Willem rushed to kick it away to save her life, but Willem fainted from his injuries after. When fighting a horde of monsters inside the ship. Just woke up when Willem saw Ron sitting next to him, and Ron wondered if Willem could fight monsters without weapons. So Willem revealed to Ron how he used to be. He is one of the heroes of the human race. Catholi and Uruku were still observing Willem from within their dreams. And Catholi wants to go back to see her lover one last time before she disappears. Despite being completely exhausted, Ren still tried to protect the ship. At the same time, one side of the engine was severely damaged, making the ship unable to keep its balance. And Ren was about to fall off the ship when fortunately Willem rushed to catch her in time. However, Ren didn't want to involve herself with everyone, so she let go of her hand and let herself fall, and Willem also risked his life to save her. Noft was lying still because of his injury when suddenly he saw Catholi. And Catholi took Noft's sword and rushed down to follow Willem. Before Willem and Ren hit the ground, Catholi caught them in time, and she rushed towards hundreds of monsters to fight them. However, Catholi's power was still unable to withstand this large horde of monsters, so she used all her magic power to create a giant explosion to drag them to death with her. Sometime later, the army announced that Catholi and Ren had died in battle. And despite being seriously injured, Ron and Noft were able to safely return to the island in the sky. The other spirit girls were deeply saddened by the loss of their emotional sisters, but they still had to work hard to follow their example. Suawang is still trying to find Willem's whereabouts, but after many efforts, he still cannot find his friend. Thank you for watching the whole video. I will leave other videos of the channel here. Don't forget to press the bell button along with the subscribe button to receive notifications when the channel releases new videos.